Hello, welcome to this week, Issues and Trends in Transition. I'm Rosalind Dotterweich. This is EDSE727, and here we go. By the end of this module, participants will be able to demonstrate a broad understanding of transition services and their connection to post-secondary life. Locate, identify, and differentiate between various transition tools available for use. Identify and understand the importance of IDEA Indicator 13 in transition, and analyze and discuss current challenges in transition services and recommendations for improvement. So to begin, I would like to use a quote from Stephen Covey, which is entirely appropriate when it comes to transition. To begin with the end in mind means to start with a clear understanding of your destination. It means to know where you're going so that you better understand where you are now, so that the steps you take are always in the right direction. And when it comes to the end in mind, what I'd like you to do for a second is I would like you to think about, in terms of pre-K through grade 12, when your students leave grade 12, when they graduate, they walk across that stage and that's it, and they're out. What is your goal? What is your end? What is your end goal for them? And I want you to try and think about it in one word. What do you want for them when they leave us? What is everything you're doing? What is the goal? So I would encourage you to pause the video and think about it for a second, and I'll wait. So I have debated this ad nauseum with a lot of people, a lot of educators over the years, and and there's no wrong answer, of course. A lot of people say happy. Of course, we want our students to be happy, fulfilled, successful, satisfied. A lot of great words usually come out of this exercise, but here's mine, and I'll tell you why. I believe that independence is the ultimate goal, because I think everything that I just said falls under the umbrella of independence. Independence, if you are able to fulfill your dreams, if you have the tools and the skills and the knowledge to go out and pursue your dreams and pursue your goals and set goals, meet goals, etc., isn't that happiness? Isn't that fulfillment? So I deeply believe that this is our end goal as educators, is to prepare students to be independent. Now, disclaimer, we all know that there are many of our students that will not be 100% independent, and that's okay. That's totally okay. But I guess my point is we want them to be independent to the greatest extent possible. Self-determined, self-advocates. This is really what we want for our students, and I believe that you would agree. So again, no wrong answers, but when we think about transition, this is it. This is what we are working. Everything that we're working for is this goal. And in that vein, when does transition begin? Because some of you might be thinking, well, I'm early childhood. This really doesn't affect me. And I'm going to say you are wrong. And this is why. Transition is forever. It is for now and always. It starts at birth. Transition is change. What do? We are born, and then we roll over, and then we sit up, then we crawl, then we are always changing. We are always evolving. We are always transitioning. So in every phase of education, we are implementing transition in some way, shape, or form. So you've got early years, and then they transition into middle school, then students will transition into high school, and then ultimately what we are doing is that we are preparing them for the post-secondary step. Early adulthood, adult responsibilities. This is the ultimate goal. A very wise woman said this. She will be watching this. So Dr. Lori Peterson, who is the professor in the transition class in EDSE727 that I'm also taking, she put this in one of the modules, and I loved it, and I borrowed it with her permission. But she said, I thought it was great. Personally, everything we do in providing special education services, literacy, behavior, et cetera, is conducted through the lens of transition. I would almost take this a step farther and say general education services, everything. What is education? We are preparing them for life. So we are all, no matter where we are in our educational, journey, we are preparing our students for transition. So what we need to do is with the module, we needed to talk about issues and trends. I'm going to talk about an issue in transition. And in order to do that, I need to start with IDEA and the purpose. When I'm sure that we've all seen this, to ensure that all children with disabilities have available to them a free and appropriate education, public education that emphasizes special education and related services designed to meet their unique needs and prepare them for further education, employment, and independent living. So transition services are huge. They play a very big role in the purpose of IDEA. So this is, as stated at the bottom, this is from the IDEA Data Center. And I know this is a big graph. Let's unpack it. This is the State Performance Plan Annual Performance Report. So what this shows is individual, and if you can see, this spans from 2013 to 2018. The data is a couple of years behind because it takes a long time to collect and compile and publish. So this is the most recent data that is available. And if you look at the graphs, you will see that this is the percentage, and this is all 50 states, territories, et cetera. This is the percentage of individuals with disabilities who have left high school, who had IEPs, and who are pursuing higher education. So we've got anywhere from 27, 26%, 25 to 27%. This graph includes higher education or competitive employment. And as you can see, it is higher, which is great, anywhere between 59 to 63%. And finally, over here, we have higher education, competitive employment, other post-secondary education and training, and some other employment. So all of these individuals are somehow, some way, either pursuing higher education, vocational, technical, or some sort of employment. Here's the issue. This is wonderful, but it's not improving. If you can see this, all three have leveled out, and in some cases are even slightly dropping. So this is an issue. We would hope to see, with all of the transition services that we are putting in place, we would hope to see at least a slight incline in all of these. And this was before COVID, so we can't blame COVID on this one at all. This is what was happening before COVID. And they're leveling out and not really moving. So this is the issue that I'd like to talk about in this module. This leads me to IDEA indicator. Thank you, Dr. Peterson. This is hers. Indicator 13. What indicator 13 is? It is one of the indicators in IDEA that specifically focuses on transition services. And it's really important. And so I'd like to go ahead and read it. This is the percent of youth with IEPs aged 16 and above with an IEP. That includes appropriate, measurable post-secondary goals that are annually updated and based upon an age-appropriate transition assessment. Transition services, including courses of study that will reasonably enable the student to meet those post-secondary goals and annual IEP goals related to the student's transition services needs. There must also be evidence that the student was invited to the IEP team meeting where transition services are to be discussed, and evidence that, if appropriate, a representative of any participating agency was invited to the IEP team meeting with the prior consent of the parent or student who has reached the age of majority. Okay, that's a lot. In a nutshell, what this means is that these transition services, and this is a compliant indicator, and what that means is that This is federally mandated. This is not optional. Schools and districts have to follow this. They must include appropriate measurable post-secondary goals in a student's IEP from age 16 on. All states are different. Some states start earlier, but this must be included in all IEPs, no matter what the disability, no matter what the circumstance, all IEPs from age 16 on. That is indicator 13. And we love indicator 13 in the transition world because this makes sure that it mandates that no matter what, no matter where you are in the United States, that this is in your IEP. So research has shown a connection between indicator 13 compliance and higher enrollment in post-secondary education, which is fantastic. So that's why we love it. Indicator 13 is great, and it needs to be, again, it is federally mandated. Schools must comply. Patterns of non-compliance with indicator, I'm going to hide myself, excuse me. Patterns of non-compliance with indicator 13 have been present in a majority of states. However, meaning students are not receiving the transition services that they need to reach post-secondary goals. So while I just got done saying that it is federally mandated and that states must follow indicator 13 compliance, there are different definitions, there are different levels of compliance. And so if any patterns of non-compliance by any schools or districts, that means that the students are not receiving the services needed to reach those goals. And by extension, it is a very good guess that post-secondary education in those districts is probably decreasing and not performing as well as other districts that are definitely compliant with indicator 13. So what is good compliance? That's what we need to look at. This is the intact indicator 13 checklist. And as you can see, this is available to everybody. I'm going to include this along with a lot of other transition goals in the module. Excuse me. So as you can see, it's a checklist that schools and districts can use to measure their IEPs and see if they are indeed indicator 13 compliant. You can see some of the questions. Are there appropriate measurables post-secondary goals in the area of training, education, employment, where appropriate independent living skills, excuse me, are they updated annually, et cetera, et cetera. So this is available for states and districts to use. This is the second half of it. Are there annual IEP goals related to the students' transition needs, et cetera, et cetera. So using a checklist is one way that schools and districts can ensure compliance. And here is another graph that refers right back to checklists. And the checklist that I just showed you, you can see that and again, it goes by year, that in 2018-19, the most recent, we had 38 states or territories that were using the checklist that I mentioned. But you don't have to use it. You don't have to use a checklist. But as you can tell, so these states and territories used and adapted. These created their own with the requirements stated. These created their own with the requirements not stated. And these states and territories did not use any kind of checklist. So I ask you, which one do you think is going to be more compliant? The ones that use a checklist or the ones that don't? And not to say that these are any of lesser quality than this one, but this one tends to be the standard. Intact, which is federally funded, tends to be the standard. So now Shameless plug. These are my kids. We visited Greeley this summer. So anyways, so we're planning a trip, right? We need to know our destination. And here we go. What is your destination? It's to prepare post-secondary independence to the greatest extent possible. That is our goal. So according to Stephen Covey's quote, then we need to figure out where we are now. So what you can do now is that you can use some of the tools that I'm going to attach to the module. And there are several, and there will be more. There is a predictor implementation school and district self-assessment that can be used on a wide scale. There is an IEP compliance checklist. There's actually several. There's a couple that I'll attach. And you did hear mentions of age-appropriate transition assessments. And I am going to attach, it's about a 30-page document from Wisconsin, and that has tons of links to transition assessments that you can give students where they can learn more about themselves in the areas of self-determination, in career planning, in transportation and mobility, if that's an issue. There's so much information out there for them to find out about themselves. And then what are the steps that you can take to get there? So schools can use what's called the taxonomy for transition programming, which is kind of a roadmap. It kind of goes along with the predictor implementation self-assessment. And it gives you different indicators of areas that you can work towards in order to improve your transition services. There's also a taxonomy gradebook, and this is something that you have to download. But if you are really interested in implementing this taxonomy, this will help you basically grade yourself to see how well you're doing in terms of transition services. So this is a lot of information. I'm going to attach a lot there. Please, dig in and look around, and I'm hoping that you'll find something that you feel is beneficial for you. So this week's objectives, there's 2 readings, and view this at transition tools, and there's a Padlet and the discussion. So here's the discussion. In transition, we really like to offer students choices, don't we all? We all enjoy choices. So I have been given permission to offer you choices this week. So the first one is you can pick a transition tool that I have attached, or even better yet, if you find another one online that you feel is really beneficial, and this is anything from a transition assessment to the taxonomy, etc. If you can pick a transition tool that you believe could realistically be used in your district by you individually to help facilitate the transition services of a student or class, etc. So you can choose it and then discuss why you chose it and how you believe that you could use it to implement the transition practices. The second one, you can research your school or your district's Indicator 13 IEP compliance protocols. Find out if a checklist is used. If it is, it would be great if you could share it. And compare it to the intact checklist that I have attached. It's also, in a few slides ago. And do you detect any areas for improvement in that checklist? And if so, how and why? And then finally, those of you who may already be involved in transition, share a transition-related experience in your own life or in that of a student that you might have worked with, and the implications of the transition services on the post-secondary outcomes for that person. So you can just pick one, and write on it. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope I didn't talk too long, but it's just me this week. I didn't share it with anybody. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope you find it beneficial. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, and I will do my very best to answer them. Okay, thank you very much.